Jessica was so excited to begin high school, or her freshman year at Greenfield University, as it is called. The campus was rather picturesque, the classes were interesting, and she immediately made the best friend's friendship with Emily. They became the best of friends, discussing secrets, studying till late, and of course having good laughs. But he had never done any of these things before as the semester went on, and Jessica began to find it peculiar. Every night, Emily was making her way out of their dorm room, and it was typically 2 in the morning. Initially, Jessica saw her friend was involved with a secret boyfriend, a boy, but every evening Emily came back home with the empty look of a true love-struck teenager. Her clothing was as clean as when she left the house. Sometimes they discussed their day, and when Jessica asked where she went, Emily just smiled and said just needed some fresh air. One day Jessica could not keep her curiosity to herself. She started faking to be still asleep and had to wait for Emily to leave. If Emily jumped out the door, within seconds, Jessica was on her heels. She followed her roommate through campus and the desolate atmosphere of the university till they got to an old dilapidated structure that was abandoned. Locking the door behind her, Jessica stares as Emily climbs in via a window held together by the screen. Jessica further advanced towards the window with her heart racing and looked through the glass pane. This is what she saw, and it paralyzed her. Emily was turning around naked in the middle of a circle, which had several candles that were giving out a dusky light, and she was singing something in a language that Jessica could not follow. Darkness painted shadows on the walls, and they looked like something alive and rather sinister. All at once the girl named Emily jerked her head up and looked straight at Jessica. The stare was cold and lifeless, and was not the kind Jessica was used to seeing in people's eyes. Frightened, Jessica rushed back to the Virgin's dormitory, her mind filled with numerous questions and so much anxiety. The following morning Emily got up like everything was perfectly normal, only for Jessica to wake up with a horrendous feeling in her stomach. Week after week Jessica began to see some changes that were taking place in Emily. She pulled herself even further inside her shell, and her skin developed a pasty look with sunken eyes. One night, Jessica was sleeping, but she suddenly opened her eyes to see Emily standing at the head of the bed, murmuring the same language. Jessica screamed in terror, while Emily did utterly not even bat an eyelid. She did not speak these words, and instead she bent and said softly to herself, "They have selected you." The next day Emily vanished Biggs, and there was no way of telling where she had gone or if she was going to return. The search was organized by the university, but she was never discovered. Jessica switches to another dorm, but Emily's whispers continue to haunt her at night. She understood, as did Emily, that whatever had taken Emily was now closing in on her. Not finding the answers anywhere else, she went to the university records one day. She discovered some newspapers and documents that informed the management the building had a history of deaths. It was a functioning psychiatric institution that shut down years ago for several wrongdoings and listed witchcraft practices. One name kept appearing in the articles: Dr. Evelyn Blackwood, a psychiatrist who left the hospital the same as the other members when it was shut down. Not willing to be a victim once again, Jessica went back to the building where she witnessed something horrible earlier. To reverse the ritual, she read the instructions coming from the Blackwoods journal. It was at this stage that she noticed the growing darkness around her body and the force pushing her to a halt. The temperature went down, and suddenly Jessica witnessed the seeming of Dr. Blackwood with fiery eyes of hatred. There was nothing left in her now but to do just that, so with every breath she shouted again, "I'm their savior." The shadows clanged, screamed, and twisted in pain, then they faded away. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. She realized that the ritual had thrown the whatever it was out of her. It was all gone. The university management acted on Jessica's information by closing the building for any use and permanently. She never got to see Emily for the rest of her years, and only prayed the friend attained the kind of death she wanted. After that, the events of her life started getting routine, and life slowly came back to normal for Jessica, but she would always bear the marks of supernatural. Greenfield University was famous for its library. It was one of the largest library buildings, which had several floors. The students used to joke that they could easily get lost when within the premises given the many rows of books. However, for Alex, there was the other side of the coin waiting, a side that no one suspected could be present in the library. Alex was shuffling between history and had a special interest in old books. He used to spend a lot of time in the basement of the library, where only the most ancient and rarer manuscripts were stored. One day he was reading a book late at night when he observed a secret door behind several books on the shelf. It was writing, he thought, and with an unusual avidity he put aside the books and walked to the door. Inside there was a small room poorly lit and full of old dusty books and rather strange objects. In the middle of the edifice of the hall there is a pedestal, and on it there lies a book the cover of which is black leather. The title said, "The Book of Shadows." Alex was stamped by curiosity and flipped open the book to read. The book described rituals of the darkness and other forbidden mysteries. While reading, Alex could not help but get a desire to attempt something from the rituals depicted in the book. It appeared innocent, as it was supposed to be a chant to enable one to know something. When he said the words aloud, however, the temperature of the room began to drop and the darkness enveloping him appeared to stir. All at once the door banged shut, and the candles, which were placed in holders all around the room, went out. Alex looked at the book, the only source of light being the glowing symbols written on the pages. He attempted to get out the door, but to no avail. It was jammed shut. He then felt what seemed to be a cold and slimy creature touch his arm, and this made him panic. The dim light flickered in the room, and from the darkness, different figures with the red shining eyes appeared in front of him. His name was all they said, and their voices became screams in the silence of his ears. Finally, out of options, Alex said the incantation in reverse, thinking that will somehow reverse whatever he has done. They took a momentary pause and flickered and disappeared out of sight, leaving him all alone in the room in the dark. As the door slowly opened, the intimidated expression on the face of Alex was visible, and his face was pale. He informed the library staff about the concealed room. However, when staff checked, they concluded the place was just a plain bare closet. The Book of Shadows, along with its secrets, was also missing. For his part, Alex never came back to the library's basement. He completed his studies and moved as far away from Greenfield University as possible, but could not forget that night. He tried to shake it off, but he could still remember the whispering and the icy sensation of the darkness. He understood that the book was still out there somewhere, looking for its next calamity. Some years later, Alex got a call from his friend, Megan, with whom he went to university. She was now the head librarian at Greenfield. She was looking through the archives and found the Book of Shadows, and so she read it, wondering what it was all about. Alex felt a heavy sinking in his chest, letting her say the words that tinted the touch with fear. He told her not to take interest in it and to lock it up, whereby it could be very difficult to be accessed. Even though Megan was convinced that the book did not carry good intentions, she was determined to stop it from causing harm any further, and therefore burnt it. She removed it to the university's old furnace located in the basement. It was engulfed in flames as soon as she was about to set it alight, and the darkness around her stirred and she heard murmurs. The book appeared to struggle and turned its pages like it had a life of its own. Megan set fire to the book she took, then she hurled the book into the fire, which became screams, the shadows twisting in pain. It was a splendid fire, one that burnt the book and cleansed it from the evil spirit residing in it. After the fire went out, the heavy tension disappeared, and Megan registered the release. She made the authorities in the university aware of the incident. They reiterated the measures to ensure that the basement remains closed. Megan carried on working at the library, and it is not shown how she was punished, but she still remembers burning the Book of Shadows. She realized she was able to stop it from corrupting more people's lives, and that was enough to make her feel accomplished. Alex and Megan were in communication with one another, informing each other how they were faring on with the task. He knew the darkness was real, and they had fought it as a couple, indeed as a team. They became good friends by and share, their friendship building up as they go through the struggle that was inflicted upon them. These people promised to prevent other people from going through such ordeals and to make certain that the past will always be hidden. Many legends circulated Greenfield University, particularly the East Hall of the building. Designed in the late 1800s, it was the oldest building on the campus, and one of them was racketed with so many paranormal activities. The best known of these was probably that of Sarah, a student who had drowned in a tragic accident in the 1920s. It was believed that her spirit wandered through the halls in search of her lover's body. Lena, a sophomore, did not at all have a belief in ghosts. She selected East Hall because of its appeal and cheap rates for renting the place. However, ever since she got a chance to occupy the house, there were weird incidences taking place. At night times there was silence only to be interrupted by faint weeping and footsteps in the corridor. Only there did she realize that nobody was there. One day Lena and some of her friends thought that it would be a good idea to have a séance in an attempt to reach out to Sarah. They all went to Lena's room, lit a candle, and held each other's hand. Upon its utterance, the room's atmosphere got colder and the flames dimmed in the candle holders. Abruptly the door bangs closed and a fierce gust of wind blew through the house. Lena shivered, and when she turned to look, she was amazed to see the silhouette of a young woman of her age by her side, but far from clear. Lena was able to feel that the figure truly wanted to comfort her. The eyes were depressed as she stretched her hands for Lena. "Help me," she whispered. The friends were scared. Lena, however, couldn't just sit back and watch. She asked Sarah what her requirement was. It pointed towards one old trunk that was buried and collected so much dust in the corner of the house. Lena now had a pile of love letters to go through, all of them faded with age, most of them from her parents. Sarah was a young girl, and through the letters she lost her fiancé in the war, much to her dismay. Lena, who was almost in tears, vowed to get the letters back to the fiancé's belongings left with the university and enclosed in a special archive. Afterward, she vowed that she would ask her husband to donate for the construction of the church. Immediately the ghost smiled and disappeared. The lights in the room came back to normal, and the loud wailing and the sound of hurried footsteps ceased. The comforting idea from the play is that Lena did not turn her back on her word, and the haunting incidents in the East Hall stopped. The legacy of Sarah's ghost, the tale of Sarah and her sad fate, became a real legend, the story about how love and tragedy lived in the university. Lena did very well in her studies, obtaining her honors, but the memory of the evening that she first encountered Sarah lingered in her mind. Often she used to wonder whether, somewhere in the world of spirits, Sarah has rest at last. However, not all spirits are peaceful. Thus, Lena's meeting with Sarah influenced her to pick the topic of the paranormal and to continue at Greenfield to do her master's degree in supernatural phenomena. There was so much more to discover, so many souls that were still wandering and troubled, which she could offer comfort to. The further she went in her search, she felt as if she had somebody following her or watching her at every turn. Another night Lena went to explore other haunted places on campus which were also the scene of multiple tragedies. In doing so, she wrote down her experiences to give the audience an understanding of what happens in the world that remains mysterious to people in search of the answers, and peace for the ones who cannot find it in the afterlife. It began to receive praise, and she was established as a professional in the paranormal research domain. Lena was great, but did not forget her word to Sarah and remained humble as ever. She went on to assist the living, and she also performed for the deceased, thus garnering peace for several people. Greenfield University was no longer a school, it was a place where history was made, where lovers met, where one could remember their beloved one, and where the souls of the dead could find peace.